Okay, looks like we're ready to go, Sharon.
You are, Margaret. It's about almost live on YouTube, but you can begin your, it's gonna be.
Okay, so this is the checklist to ensure our meetings are compliant with the right to know law during a state of emergency. They will be punctuated by calls for my dog. As chair of the Board of Selectmen, I find that due to the state of emergency declared by the governor as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic, and in accordance with the governor's emergency order number 12 pursuant to executive order 2020-04, this public body is authorized to meet electronically. Please note that there is no physical location to observe and listen contemporaneously to this meeting, which was authorized pursuant to the governor's emergency order. However, in accordance with the emergency order, I am confirming that we are providing public access to the meeting by telephone with additional access possibilities by video or other electronic means. We are utilizing both YouTube and Zoom for this electronic meeting. All members of the board have the ability to communicate contemporaneously during this meeting through this platform, and the public has access to contemporaneously listen and, if necessary, participate in the meeting through dialing the following phone number, 603-236-4730, or by clicking on the following website address, www.watervillevalley.org. You can also use the chat box. I would just note that since this is a workshop meeting, we are not specifically seeking public input at this time. B, we are providing public notice of the necessary information for accessing the meeting. We previously gave notice to the public of the necessary information for accessing the meeting, including how to access the meeting using Zoom or telephonically. Instructions have also been provided on the website of the town at www.watervillevalley.org. C, we are providing a mechanism for the public to alert the public body during the meeting if there are problems with access. If anybody has a problem, please call 603-236-4730 or email townofwv@watervillevalley.org. And D, we will adjourn the meeting if the public is unable to access the meeting. In the event the public is unable to access the meeting will be adjourned and rescheduled. Please note that all votes that are taken during this meeting shall be done by roll call vote. Let's start the meeting by taking a roll call attendance. When each member states their presence, please also state whether there is anyone in the room with you during this meeting, which is required under the right to know law. And this is Margaret Turner. I'm the chair of the Board of Selectmen, and I am alone.
Hello, everybody. Rich Rita, vice chair, and I am alone.
Mike Aronson, alone.
Okay, Mark, are you going to share documents? There we go. Okay, so we've all had a chance to look at this, but Mark, you want to give us an overview, because I get confused when there are this many numbers and this many percentages. So it would be helpful to have an overview as we go through each sheet. I can't hear you, Mark.
Unmute. There you go. So the years are just for your information. Look at the total column. These total numbers are totals from every year between 2002 and 2020. So here it's telling us that we've spent $4.5 million. We've collected $4.5 million in water department revenues between those years. We had capital expenditures of about $2 million and an operating budget expense for those years of $2.3 million. And so we have collected $214,000 more in water department revenue than we have used to run the water department from 2002 to 2020. Same information here for wastewater, with $1 million in tax dollars that have been used to run the wastewater system. And this final group of numbers is just a combination of these two. So we have used $845,000 to run both water and sewer of tax dollars between 2002 and 2020.
And
On
Mark,
average-
Mark, was our original objective here when those who came before us set up the rates and that kind of thing? Was it to break even, basically?
No,
To cover our costs?
no, we have always subsidized these departments, and the argument up until the Trump administration was that we should keep a large portion of it, and some argued that all of it should be in taxes because you could write the taxes off that you paid in property taxes on your federal income tax. So there has been in the past, a hesitancy to increase our water sewer fees because those were not tax deductible.
Okay.
So, under the Trump administration, that lessened a little bit over the last 3 or 4 years, but who knows what's going to happen with the new administration, whether or not we're going to have a return to that system. So
Okay.
this has been the financial impact on the tax rate. That's averaged out to $42,000 a year. That's about 13 cents a year at our current valuation.
And so we need to have a discussion, in addition to looking at all the numbers, we need to have a discussion about what we want our philosophy to be in terms of covering the costs of operating water and wastewater. I
Right,
mean, we should identify that certainly would drive what kind of numbers we use going forward.
that's right. And just so we have the information, our tax rate is among the lower in the state. We are right now, we're at
29.
1425, where I forget now, I don't have this list.
I think it's 29th or 26th,
29th,
something like
yeah,
that.
29th in the state. We're pretty low compared to other communities. But again, we have properties that have a high total valuation, so the tax bill itself is still comparable, but the rate overall is among the lowest in the state. When we are evaluated as to whether or not, and this is important because when we are evaluated on our whether or not we qualify for state aid, whether it's from the state revolving fund or whether it's from grants or whatever, we're evaluated on our tax rate compared to other towns, our water and sewer rates compared to other towns, and our median household income, along with some other things like total valuation and our population, et cetera. But those three things are very critical in whether or not we qualify. So our tax rate is low. This sheet shows us here at the bottom part of it in this box that right now we have an extremely low average utility bill annually compared to the state. So in the state, the average utility bill, water and sewer for the year is about $1,300. Ours on average is $95. So it
Doesn't
Yeah.
sound right to me. So are there a lot of properties that only have like $25 a quarter they're
30
paying?
$33 a quarter is not out of the question.
Hey, Mark, can I ask a question about numbers before we go ahead
Yeah,
to
Mike.
new
Yeah.
things? Well, I realize we've added the cost of the bonds and the RD project in 14 and 15.
Right,
And those are how many years? Are those 15 or 30-year out projects?
30.
So those are 30 years. So we're not even getting into the, downward part of that. But have you thrown in a number, and maybe we should throw in a number as a placeholder for the potential money we're going to borrow at town meeting this year? Because if the effect of what we've looked at in the past years of those two bonds coming along, and that was only 2.4 million, and we're talking about 5 coming on and even more. So is it worth looking at it now?
Well, we already know what those potential impacts are each year from our.
Right, but we don't have that going forward to look at what the real number might be.
Going forward from this sheet, you mean?
Well, yeah, when we're only going out, this sheet only goes to 2020. So we're going to be adding significantly more bond payments on to the water and sewer in the next few years.
Right,
And we're not retiring a lot of the others because they're still in the middle point where we're not getting to a point where they're going down much.
right.
So do you think before we start looking at numbers, we might want to build these numbers into it? So we're not realizing we're short in 3 years again? Or do you think the numbers you've built in will get us through the
No,
heavy period?
The numbers that I built in do not really cover, when you look at them, they don't even cover this total deficit for 2020.
No, I've got you.
It's only to make up part of the cost. We're still
Right.
going to have a substantial number that's going to be coming out of the tax rate itself.
No, I've got you. But when we get down 2 or 3 years of looking at this,
Yeah.
and when we look that we might have to reassess and do another adjustment towards, of course, it's not going to be reducing the rates. I don't want people to say that, well, why didn't you do it when we first did it? Or why didn't you take that into consideration when
Well,
you were planning going forward?
I looked at the fact that, I am proposing, I put on the sheet a 30% increase over 4
Right.
years. So,
And that's kind of the question I'm asking. Will that 30% get us through these next periods?
it'll get us through, but it will
But
not
we'll
make
still
up
be at a
everything.
But will our deficit, will the raise we're coming up with, will that put us in a better light 6 years from now, or 7 years from now, or in 7 years from now? Are we being naive in the minor raise we're putting in? It's not going to cover enough based on what our philosophy is going to be.
No, I did not propose to cover all of the increase. We are going to be facing the same thing once we take the big bond in 2023.
Right.
From 2024 on, you couldn't keep up with the cost that's going to be in the departments. This deficit here, this $844,000, that's going to be a couple of years once we get to 2024.
No, we're on the same page with this. And I'm just figuring, is there a way to figure it in and to try to account for it?
Yeah, we could project. I mean, I can show you, I can make some assumptions on our operating budget and we can show you the estimated capital expenses for 5 or 10 years out on this chart.
Well, even if we just keep the capital expenses at the same by raising them, say 3% and throwing the bond payments in.
Oh yeah, that's what I mean. Just
Yeah.
the expected bond payments is going to blow this whole thing up. It's
Yeah,
gonna be
and that's basically the
millions
question
of
I'm
dollars.
asking. Are we doing enough now to protect us for when the bond payments start coming due? Or are we going to be in worse shape and have to go back to the town and explain why we're doing it again?
Well, I think you should do the projected or the proposed increases that I gave you. I would do those and tell the town that you're going to have to continue to raise them beyond the 5-year mark
Okay,
going forward, you're going to have to maintain increases in those rates to keep anywhere near half or a third of the real cost.
oh, no, I've got that. I just want to get it out there if anyone's watching or anyone's paying attention to it,
Yeah.
that this is not the fix-all for the next 15
No,
years.
this is, no, not at all. Not at all. And I just tried to get it to a point by the end of it where we could look at this average cost for our users and say, you know, we're gonna go from a $95.14 rate to $280 a year. You know, that's
Significant.
still not much compared to the state average.
Yeah.
But I mean, I don't know. Do you think that there is the stomach to take a 50% increase in these fees?
Boy,
I-
you know, the one thing that I think people are going to say is that they're really not seeing any change in their services. So why are they suddenly getting this bump?
Well, we haven't adjusted them in 11 years is my first answer.
Okay, so yeah, that's one of the things. And we have the other data that says we're extremely low. So then
Right.
the question becomes, how do we make that up? I think, you know, part of what Mike is saying is maybe we ought to have a plan that says, here's what we're going to do over the next 5 years with the rates.
Well, I think we're talking about raising it over a period of time, not raising it immediately. But I think it's just a matter of education to let people know, especially with the project. I think people will understand with the project being realized and the construction being done, that that's going to add the cost when that comes up. But I was just wondering if we could get to a better position now without going completely overboard, so it wouldn't be as harsh coming back to, you know, the citizens in a few more years going, oh, by the way, we raised you 30% 5 years ago. We're going up another 50% now. After we've already bonded, you know, the money and they're paying back the bonds.
I guess the answer to that may be, it does bring us back to philosophy and how much we
Yeah.
want to be a user fee and how much we want to be, you know, just, I guess, capital costs that everyone shares in.
That's exactly it, Rich.
Anybody have the answer?
Well, I can recalculate these percentages on any percent that you want. I mean, this represents a 30% compounded increase over the next 4 years.
Yeah.
And that's still only going to get us about an $8,000 increase in, or a $7,300 increase over what people are currently paying, at least for these accounts. So that's not a huge amount in the big scheme of things.
Now, I know that's one of the problems. It's not a huge amount and people aren't going to understand that. It's tough. Mark, you're doing a great job with these numbers. I'm not
Yeah,
faulting you at all with it.
No, yeah, I get it. I just, I don't know how much, you know, how do you communicate to folks that we're, you know, that we're going to be facing this, whether they pay the bill in their water and sewer fee or whether they pay us in the tax rate. It doesn't.
I gotta go let my piano tuner in. I'll be
Okay.
right back.
You know, it's just a matter of what do you
Yeah.
think is going to be more palatable to the folks paying the bills?
Right, and you're also right with what the tax laws have changed, where most people, the tax bills, you know, it's not going to be the benefit it was a few years ago.
I think it's 10,000, right? I mean, I think it's, somewhere along that
Yeah, it's 10,000 for everything.
for max, right? So I guess another complication may be, do we want to present this as water and sewer or water, sewer?
Well, the bills that they see are combined, Rich. I wouldn't try to separate them out. Because I don't, I think they've got to look at them because the state measures them as utility bills combined. So, you know, when we're talking about state averages and things like that, I think, I mean, to my mind, they should be together, but.
When we look at, I don't have a bill in front of me. I do know there are probably, there are a number of houses who do not have sewer on their, as part of their payment, as part of their quarterly payment, correct? So it's, when we get it, it's, I believe, what does it say? I'm sorry, I don't have one in front of me. Does it say water, then sewer, then trash? Are they broken out that way?
Yes,
Yeah, that's what I was referring to.
And these rates that you're showing, Mark, are just the water and sewer though, not the trash.
correct. The trash is on the next sheet.
Okay.
And then, yeah,
So people are going to see an
And the
increase in
trash
both.
is what? Trash is what, 15 a quarter?
Yeah,
yeah,
15 a quarter. So if you want to look at my house as an example, and I have water and sewer, I'm at 17 River Road, 585.20. That's, I think I pay 130 with the trash fee off it. 4 quarters
yeah.
of about 130.
So these numbers, oops, sorry. These numbers at the bottom, Margaret, are
Mhm.
the state report numbers for water and sewer. This is based on 6,000 gallons per household per month.
Right.
Okay, so these numbers are a little misleading because this average utility bill isn't the actual amount that people are paying. This is per that 6,000 gallons of use. But it's also
Right.
per 6,000 gallons of use for the state average as well. So it's normalized between the two, if that makes sense to you. The reason that it's different for us and the reason that this number is so low is because of the flat rate that we use and the really low quarterly bills that we have based on our water usage overall for the town. Because they're dividing in our water usage in this number. This isn't a real average of all of our flat fees. This is an average of 6,000 gallons of usage on the state system. But there's no other way to compare it to everybody else in the state other than normalizing it on that 6,000 gallons
Right.
a month. So that's going to be difficult. Is that clear? Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, I understand.
So if we averaged your 3 bills, you're not anywhere near that 65-14 or 95-14. But if you take into account the water usage in the town and normalize it to 6,000 gallons, that is the average compared to the rest of the state. And I know that's hard to.
It is when you're looking at the column up above that says what the current annual rates are, and they're all higher than
They're all,
95,
yes,
95-14.
that's right. And that's how that, and so the actual impact on people's wallets are going to be more than this increase, the actual dollars that they're paying, but on the gallons of water used is what that's measuring. So, but when you look at, that's why I did this piece right here, where I looked at the actual dollar increase that we would see over these 40 properties, because that does take into account these higher numbers in the annual cost column. Right? These are hard and fast dollars increases. So what the property owners are going to see for an increase is actually going to be 15% this year, plus an additional 5 and another 5 and another 5. They're not, so it kind of, this is just so we can measure the comparison to the state average and see how we're doing when the state of New Hampshire looks at it. I think we should focus on these numbers in this part of the sheet when we're talking to people, and compare the $22,000 number here with the $29,000 number here. When we're talking to them about their actual out-of-pocket costs.
So Mark, when you're talking about, say, a 15% and a 5 and so forth, percent increase, are you talking that is combined water and sewer, or just water?
It's a combined, because we use the water number to calculate the sewer number. So it's a combined number.
So there'd be a 15% overall increase, or a 15% increase for each?
15% in the first year, and then it's compounded another 5% in the following 3 years.
Yeah.
So when we get to the end, we've actually increased the rates by about 33%,
Right.
because it's a compound process.
But this would be across the board. You'll see
Across
that.
the board, yeah.
They'll see it in their water payment and their sewer payment, and then we have to discuss the solid waste.
Separately, that it would be a.
And if we look at my property, it says the increase is 60.4%.
No,
Is that what the last column is?
no, the last column is what the percentage
Oh.
is of the state average.
Okay, sorry.
It works out to about 32.5 to 33%. So,
Well, my general reaction, I understand what you were trying to do in the box down on the left, but I think that's pretty hard to explain to people.
yeah, I mean, this is really for your information more than the public, other than to say that we need, when we measure our revenue from water and sewer fees compared to the state, we are asking our water and systems users to pay a much lower amount than the statewide average for the water service and for the sewer service. So, maybe the only number that we should pull out of here is this last column with the percentages of the median household income comparisons, because we're 10 times lower. We're 10 times lower than the state average.
That's also impacted by the fact that we have some rather high median income.
Yes, we do. And there are some users that are obviously below that, right? That's why it's median. So I understand that, but it's still, extraordinarily low for the state. I mean, you have systems out there where the users are paying 5 and 10% of median household income. It's ridiculous. I don't know how they run those systems. I don't know how people pay the bills.
So Mark, when are you talking about implementing these changes, or do we need a public hearing on them?
Well, you would need a public
Yeah.
hearing, but we could get them in place for the April bill if you wanted.
I think we have to.
Yeah, I think we should implement it for 21, for sure.
I would agree.
Now, if you take the total that we are gonna raise, it's gonna increase we need to calculate and be able to tell you how much we estimate the water and sewer fees going up. But if you
Will
go back,
decrease the deficit.
we would be looking at total revenue.
So you look at 92% of our costs versus 81% of our costs currently.
560,394 times. Oops. 560,394. That's going to get us an extra $64,500 in estimated revenue.
So it's only covering about half of the deficit if we look at last year.
That's correct. But again, we've got those 5% over the next 3 years as well. We can make those 10% if you wanted, but you know, I was trying to.
Yeah. Well, we might want to, whoever's doing this in 2 years might want to look at this in 2 years again. No, I'm
No, I
serious.
understand.
I think where
That's right.
we haven't borrowed the money yet for these
Right.
projects and don't have that debt service on these departments yet, you know, I think the next time to review it is to watch and see what that's anticipated to be.
Well, we will be borrowing the million, right? I mean, for the water.
Yeah, that's already borrowed. That's
Right.
in our account.
That's included.
Right.
No, that's not included in this because we're not making any debt service
Payments.
on that until
Right.
Until 2022.
22. Okay.
Now, the other thing we're gonna need to do is make a decision on, are we gonna include the 64,000 in our estimated revenues in the calculation of the tax rate impact on our budget summary sheet? Because we need to put that in the town report that way if you want. So that's gonna lower the tax rate, right? Because
Well, wait a minute, Mark. Why don't we put that in there and not use the fund balance to lower the tax rate, offset it?
okay, we
That-
can do that.
Because that kind of defeats our purpose to raise the thing and lower the rate.
No, to lower the tax rate, you're absolutely right. And that was gonna be my other recommendation, was to take $65,000 worth of projects that we're currently funding with fund balance and use general taxation for those instead.
Or one other equivalent, so we're not running it through and losing it.
What do you mean?
Meaning that we're creating all this money and let's not, offset it and give it back
Yeah,
to the public. We're taking it on one hand and giving it back, so it's a wash that makes no sense. So
Yeah,
that's why you write either fund projects with tax dollars or don't use fund balance for other stuff. Offset it. Make sure that this money goes to the bottom line and gets carried through.
yes. That's what we're saying the same thing. And the same thing's gonna be true when we have the discussion about the trash fees.
Yeah.
Have we moved off of the idea of a extra fee for overage and water use?
Well, that's the other part of this sheet, Rich.
Right.
And when we looked at it in the big scheme of things, these are the only 6 out of these 40 units. And this is a mix of shared meters and single home meters. We only raised potentially $800 by implementing the state or the what Plymouth charges per gallon for the over usage. Okay, and the usage was based on the 6,000 gallons a month, 18,000 gallons a quarter.
Right.
Now, I will note though that that is only half of what the EPA says is the normal household usage. And you can see we're already extremely low. If we use the EPA numbers, nobody would have paid.
Right. Well, the other component would simply be, and I raise it just for the record, that obviously when we're dealing with drought and issues such as environmental issues having to do with water usage, extra fees do help tamp down those sorts of problems.
Well, the other point that I know we've discussed before, these 38 or however many sample properties, if they are on a shared meter, you're asking for neighbors to beat each other up. If there's a problem and there's an overage and you got one person who's there all the time and the other people who show up once every 3 or 4 weeks.
Right.
So there's a problem in charging for the overage if you've got a shared meter.
So one way we could address the issue that Rich brought up and tie it back into the drought situation would be if we were willing to invest a little bit of money up front, we could put separate meters on any irrigation systems in town. Okay. And the way that we would do that is we could bill them per gallon for all usage on their irrigation system. And that would potentially encourage conservation. Okay. I don't know how many of those systems we have in town, but I don't think the upfront cost would be extremely high. And you certainly would help with the conservation because a lot of our use in the summer is a lot of our extra use that we see in the summer is irrigation.
All right, I've already heard the contrary side to this one.
Okay.
And I'll share it with you. It's some of the people that have spent a lot of money on their yards take pride in it, and they think they're enhancing the community by having a full, lush property. And the question is, should they be penalized for this? I'm not quoting yes or no, but I know it's going to come up. Like, I think if you conserve on one way and use it another way, meaning that we talked about, it's a really tough one because you're exactly right, Margaret. We have that thing with meters, the shared meters, someone who's here every 2 years, paying the same water bill as a family that lives here all the time. But I just don't know the answer to that. I know it's going to open up a can of worms and a hornet's nest for coming to it. So I think instead of metering irrigation, you maybe create a class of single family homes, get so many gallons a period, but then the people that are in condos aren't going to have that same guideline. You create 2 classes of citizens.
Right.
So it's not an easy answer.
But the bottom line, Mark, if I understood you correctly, as far as conservation is concerned, we are already well below usage that is recommended by the EPA. Is that correct?
Well, yeah, this is showing if you assumed every parcel in town, we're way below the annual use. But I'll tell you, there are, especially in the summer, there are properties out there that are high because they are irrigated.
No, I get it, but how much of a problem is it?
I'm
You know-
glad that not every property has irrigation.
That's the point I'm trying to make, is that are we creating a problem that really doesn't exist yet? And maybe we should turn this over to our resource committee to look at, a way of us as a town conserving water. And make them be the arbiter of these changes, not us.
Mm,
It's certainly a place to hold a discussion, perhaps.
Yeah,
I'd like to maintain being the arbiter personally, as part, at least the select board, I should say.
well,
Well,
I
select
don't,
board always determines the fees.
Yeah.
right, but I think we've created the Energy Commission and the Recycling Commission and all these people that are looking to make us more green and more ecologically efficient as a town. Maybe their recommendations would come to us on something like this.
Yeah, no, I think it's a great idea.
That's what I meant instead of arbiter.
Yeah, I think you ought to turn it over to the Conservation Commission, because that is what they are supposed to do, is conservation of natural resources, and water is specifically in the statute. That's their thing.
I think that's a good idea.
One in a row for me.
Uh-huh.
No, many more than that. Well, I just wanted to get on the record that we have discussed this. It's not that we're blind to the conservation part of this, as well
Right.
as the impact on people's budgets. And I think it makes eminent sense that this is something that we need to look at harder, the conservation side of this, given the unique properties that we have in town. But in the
And
meantime,
Yeah,
need to
let's
move
not
forward.
forget, we still have the level 4 drought
yes,
in existence.
and we can limit some irrigation because of that.
Yes.
We've limited all of it. We said people can't fill swimming pools.
That's right.
and they Can't, yeah.
That's right.
Jim, what do you think?
Well, it's been my observation as far as the irrigation systems go, that I'm not quite sure it's all the gallons are being used up by the irrigation systems per se, but probably off of silcox, off of houses, newly built houses, in a lot of cases, that are using their silcox and dragging hoses around to water the garden all summer.
But
I mean, water the lawn.
But we're capturing that on their meter in their house, though.
Correct. We are.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm trying to think of irrigation systems that I see that are in use a lot.
Well, the golf course would come to mind.
Well, that's a commercial account.
Yeah, well, it's a commercial account, and they are using a lot of their own resources with the
Right.
pond and
Yeah, that's a
They're
lot
all-
of that. A lot of that comes out of
The
the
hotel laundries use a lot of water that we don't
Yeah.
think about.
Yeah,
yeah,
The
and,
athletic clubs keeping the pools cycled and filled.
and we capture all of that with their
Yeah,
meters
exactly. They
that
pay
we
for it.
bill them. Yeah, we bill them on a usage basis for that.
And I know at least one person on River Road who has a irrigation system on the corner, because when you go by in the morning, it's on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, there are a handful around town. There aren't many, right, Jim?
right. There's not too many. I'd have to get a count. I can get with Brad and we can come up with a number of them, but they're not that many. The other thought I had as far as the, where we have multiple use off a single meter, most of those are in condominium associations. So I'm not quite so sure that maybe I mean, you know, we're gonna bill according to what's on that meter. I'm not sure if that would be under the condominium association's purview in order to divvy that up.
Well, it would be whatever the fee, whatever the rate structure the board decided on. So
Correct.
we could
Correct.
say that we would combine, if there were 2 or 3 buildings in an association, you could combine those together and you could split the cost among, you're just sending the bill to the association
Go with,
Right,
instead of the property owner.
instead of the property owner.
You know, to me, that's just gets into the too difficult category.
Yeah,
I think staying flat rate makes it as equitable as we can make it.
yeah, the condos have to stay flat rate on that because we just discussed that issue where you have the family that lives there that uses all the water and someone who comes up once every 3 years.
Yeah.
And if the rate is flat and everyone's paying the same, it's fair. If not, you're going to create a lot of tension within the association.
Yeah, and if that was a smaller percentage town-wide, then, then we might be able to work around it, but we're talking 750 accounts out of 1,200 or 1,300. So you're talking more than half of our accounts are shared.
And we might have to throw all these numbers out the window after really looking at a year from the new influx of people, if they're staying, to see what happens.
Yeah, that's right. We're going to have, we monitor it monthly. So,
Right.
Yeah.
And what about the system we use? As I recall, again, for the record, since we're talking about water, we decided to keep our approach for how we bill based on units. Is that correct?
Fixtures.
Fixtures,
Commercial is the only one that is built on water.
water usage,
units.
right? The question there, I think we had in front of us, is whether we wanted to resurvey the fixtures / units or whatever it's. I forget how we refer to it, but I do think we call it like we combine it all into a number of units per property, per residential property, right?
That's correct.
Right.
Yeah.
But those are fixtures. So for people listening, those are fixtures,
That's correct.
which
we
have certain values.
You have a number of fixtures. They're worth a certain number of points that gets added together. And we have a rate per units that we use in the billing system.
See,
And so,
I think what we're going to need to do going forward, if and when this happens, when someone comes in and wants to develop these parcels into commercial units, which may or not be sold to individuals, may not be hotel condominiums or whatever they are. I think what we're going to need to do, and we're doing a lot of the research now on it, is really before they are permitted, figure out what the tap fees should be on these things to take into account what it's going to cost the town to provide additional services to these multiple units.
we already have a tap fee system.
Right. Oh, I know we have it, but if we have to create a lot more service to get to these taps.
That's a separate thing, Mike. It's called.
Oh, no, I know it's a separate thing, but it's all town money coming out.
Yeah, but
So-
it's part of the planning board process that they make recommendations to you about those impact fees.
Oh, no, I get that, but I'm talking about significant impact fees like we haven't seen in the last 20 years or longer, where if you're going to bring so many units on at a single time.
Yeah.
The amount of infrastructure created for the town to service those units is going to bear a cost, which might be above just the single tap fees.
Right, but that's a calculation that is made at the time that the
Yeah, okay. No, I just wanted to be aware of,
site plan is done.
bring it up,
Yes.
that it's going to be something that might need to be adjusted.
Yeah, we can look at,
But it would be adjusted at the time of the proposal and the permits.
right. it is something that we have not done in the past with these subdivisions and everything else, that because the owner, the developer put in the infrastructure. So you have a choice to make. You either assess impact fees or you have the developer pay the cost of the installation. So we've always done them paying 100% of the cost of the infrastructure that is extended, in lieu of paying us an impact fee.
Mark, when we made an increase 11 years ago, how much of a percentage was that?
About 5%. I don't think we have moved off our rates more than, it has to be less than 20% in the past 20 years.
Okay, that's also numbers that people should know, I think, in terms of, you know, what the past history of increases has been. And, you know, if we could show that between this year and this year, we had a 5% increase over 5 years.
Mhm.
And now we've gone 11 years without having any increase at all, which is another reason to do the 15 upfront, at least. That's what I'm
Yep.
looking at is, you know, when the increases have been done in the past, how often were they done? How much, what percentage were they? And what was the interval between the increases?
Yep,
Because I think it's been a very long time
it has.
versus prior.
Right. It's a great
Increases.
idea, Margaret, especially for that first big bump.
Right.
We'll pull that out.
So there's been no process over the years to look at the rate structure and just even increase for something like inflation.
Well, we threw in the $15 for the trash fee a few years ago. That was new. That didn't exist.
Okay, okay,
And as Mark was saying earlier, Rich, the general consensus was, as long as people could deduct it off their taxes,
Right.
let's take it out of the tax rate, as
Right.
opposed to putting it in fees which were not deductible. So I don't think there was an overall philosophy of trying to cover the expenses, the ongoing operating expenses with the revenues.
and hence our deficit
With the
spending.
revenues from fees.
Right.
Yeah,
It's been a very interesting educational experience for me.
I think we ought to get going in that direction. And I think that's what we're trying to do.
I agree.
I mean, we can stand in front of the taxpayers and say, yeah, 15% seems like a lot. But last year we were $112,000 short. That only gets us halfway there.
And we have to get the money somewhere.
Right, right.
And the other thing, you may get some pushback, Margaret, if the new administration goes back and changes the tax law again and increases those deductions. You may get pushback against this increase with people using the same argument to take it out of their taxes, because now they're back to being able to deduct all of their property tax payments.
Right, right.
So
Yeah.
we just need
So,
to
so
be-
that gives us the opportunity to take a different look at it next year. We say this is the plan now, but we're going to keep an eye on what's happening with taxes and property tax deductions and that kind of thing going forward.
I think it's very shaky to try to make any projection going forward on where tax deductions are going to go at all. And
I'm not saying that you should be projecting them. I'm saying you may get pushback.
no, I hear you. Yeah, I was thinking out loud, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah.
this is a case of, I think, a tax code kind of perverting what should be a simple local decision.
Yeah,
And I agree with you, Margaret. I think and we can even go forward with the plan for future increases as Mark has laid out. But we don't necessarily have to follow that after, at a given point in time, say a year downstream, we can reevaluate where we are and whether we think the number is good or should go down or up or stay the same.
But are we all in agreement that what we're trying to do is to get to a point of covering our day-to-day operating costs? Does that make sense to everyone?
I agree with that.
Yep, I'm on that train too.
Okay, so-
We're just so far away, we can't do it immediately.
Right, right. Okay. On to the trash.
well, wait, one more question for you. So 15% is okay so that we can do some numbers calculations for you?
Yep,
Are you okay
works
with
for
that?
me.
All right.
That's your recommendation, and I'm willing to take that.
All right, one,
If anything, I'd bump it up a little higher, but I'm willing to take the 15,555 plan.
okay. How are we gonna treat businesses the same as the residentials? Or do you want us to calculate a different increase on businesses that get billed per gallon?
I think treat the businesses the same way, run a number and see how much more that gets us.
Okay,
And it should be fair. The one thing that's kind of odd about our tax base is we don't have a different tax rate for commercial than we do for residential.
right. That doesn't happen in New Hampshire. That's correct.
Yeah, but I come from a different background where it's, yeah, no, I think usage is fine. And let's look at the numbers. Maybe by doing that, we might eliminate one of those 5% per year or might slide into those bond payments a lot easier.
Well, no, in the $65,000 additional revenue that I talked about, the commercials are in there.
Oh, I didn't
Okay,
know
so
that.
that's just 15%.
Okay,
So that's not just the residentials. That's everything.
So what
So-
you're saying is that you'd increase their per gallon rate 15%?
Yes, in order to get to that $64,400 that I talked about, that would be increasing that per gallon rate by 15% as well. Because that's total revenue.
Well, off the top of my head, I can't think of another way to do it, to make sure that they're sharing in the pain.
Well,
it's
I'm
not
just,
saying it's what the reality of what we need to do to go forward. We're facing new issues and we have not raised this stuff in a while.
right. And I'm fine with doing that, but you're gonna hear the COVID argument and we don't have business and you need to be nice to business. So just understand that the numbers that we're talking about, everybody's gonna get this increase.
Exactly, and that's fair.
Right.
We're a community.
Yep. I agree. I just wanted to bring it up so that it was part of the discussion.
Okay,
All right, so on to trash. So here are the numbers for the trash. So you've got collection, disposal, and capital costs minus the fees and other solid waste charges. Last year we were deficit spent $225,000. This year we've budgeted $195,000 deficit. Now that does not include the increase. So if we were to do the increase of doubling the fee from $5 a month to $10 a month, we would raise the the deficit would go down to $120,000. So we would raise another $74,000 to $75,000. Now, in this case,
Mark, are in your trash fees of 93,765, does that include commercial dumping?
yes, it does. And let me explain the commercials. I broke them out right here, Mike. About 72 in
Yeah.
last year, 72,000 was from residential.
Yeah.
And 21,000 was from commercial. Okay. So what I built into this sheet to get down to the $120,000 deficit number is I built in doubling the residential from $5 to $10 a month. And then
Okay.
on the commercials, I built in an additional, a 10% increase because they are billed on the per pull.
Right.
So they're billed on their actual trash generation. So I built in a 10% increase, and that's what this $24,200 number is.
Did you have a particular reason for picking 10% increase, Mark?
No, it can be whatever you want, and I'll recalculate the number, but
It's
again,
it's a tough one, to be fair to them, because, they don't have any other option.
well, they don't have any other option, and their use is down so far that they have not been a part of our costs in 2020 because their use of the system was reduced so much.
Now, your residential, the 72,025 you have, residential properties, is that from up top, disposing of what's up top?
No, the 173 here is our cost for personnel and vehicle operation and all of that. This 77 and 79, correct me if I'm wrong, Jim, but this is our tipping fee at Bethlehem as well as the dumpster.
No, I'm talking about on the revenue side, down at the bottom.
Oh, on the revenue side, this 23, this 26 and this 23 here, that's.
No, I'm talking about the top line, residential properties, 72,007.
Yeah,
Where is that coming from?
that comes from their flat, the $5 a month.
Okay, that's the 15, that's the $60 a
Correct,
year.
correct,
Is-
on the residential properties.
So if you double that, wouldn't that be 140?
Well, that's right here, 75 and 75 as our projections.
Oh, okay, I got it. Yeah, all right, I'm reading the wrong line. I'm sorry.
So could you go down to the bottom line, Mark, just to see where we end up?
So instead of this 194, 944 deficit, it goes down to 119.
120. Right.
Yeah.
Again, when was the last time we looked at, I guess it was when we instituted the trash collection fee?
That's correct. When we went to the flat fee and stopped billing everybody on the pull per dumpster.
And when was that, Mark?
When we went to recycling, so 2014,
Okay.
so 7 years. Right, Judy? I know it's in your file somewhere. I'm pretty sure it was 14 or 15 that we did.
Mark, I think we did that after the stone incident.
Yeah,
In 2012, 13, potentially.
Okay, so yeah, 13, 14, so but that was about the same time we went to recycling, so
Mhm.
pretty sure it all happened at the same time. I'll find out exactly.
So we'd be going to $30 a quarter.
Correct. Yeah,
But again, it's been quite some time since there's been any
Right.
rise in the cost.
more than $5 years.
Right.
and what is our percentage of cost to, deliver a ton where before we were getting back money for bringing recyclables? Jim?
You mean
Well-
our cost per ton?
I can
Yeah.
tell,
How has that looked over the last few years?
I can tell you, hold on.
Right. It's held fairly steady, the tipping.
Oh, really? Well, we don't have the offset, which is probably why it's different.
Well, yeah, but that offset was variable depending upon market conditions.
Yeah, but at least we had it.
Right, and it was never more than 19.5% of the total volume.
Right, but we had that offset as opposed to losing the offset and paying for the other part of it.
Right,
No, Mike, if you
Yeah.
look at these numbers here, we spend about $340 a ton to get rid of waste in 2020.
Okay,
And that's pretty consistent. These first two numbers, look at how until
Yeah.
2018, that was the big jump. So
Right, from
prior
17.
to that, I'll just do the 2007. Because our actual number of tons that hasn't been much different than 800 a year, right, Jim? It's been
right,
running right along 800. So we went from $240 a ton in 2017 to $342 a ton in 2018.
Now, a
And
third increase.
yeah. And that was the recycling change year.
Right.
and that, yeah, that's right.
And then we had the big jump last year.
Right. Well, that
It's not
was,
as big as between 217 and 218, but another 20,000 in cost.
I'm sorry. So the 341 was 2020 compared to 2017. So 2018, was 309. So we went from what did I say, 241 to 309 to 341. 17, 18, and 20.
Well,
using
You know,
roughly-
again, I don't have a problem with the proposal of 10% on the commercial properties and increasing to $10 a month or $30 a quarter. Again, I hate to say it, but I wonder if we're doing enough.
2013 recommendations for trash fees.
I wonder if we're doing enough, given that we haven't done anything for quite some time.
I think the answer to that question, perhaps, Margaret, is that if we approach it in a staggered manner, we may eventually get to whatever we deem enough to be. Trying to do it in a more quickly may not go over very well.
Right, so do we need a similar plan to the other one that says 2021, it's going to be $30, and 2022, it's projected to be 40, and 2023, it's projected to be 50? Do we need something like that? I mean, we got a 4-year plan on the other one. And those might not be the right numbers. I'm just asking if we should
Yeah.
have a plan that shows for trash that we're planning on taking that up as well, since we're $200,000 in the hole.
Well, Margaret, let's also put it to the advice of these new committees we're starting, where we're looking at this committee, which is looking into recycling and other options. So before we, bring more into this, they might come up with a plan the town wants. It might cost us to be 50 or 60 bucks a quarter to
Mhm.
accomplish a recycling goal.
Okay,
Yeah, we can have something tentatively as a plan going forward as a board. I don't have a problem with that. But I also would agree with Mike that this new solid waste committee that we're getting off the ground here, I had as one of the short-term issues was this consumer cost structure and a discussion, and that would include medium and long-term, depending upon where we end up with how we deal with that trash and where we go with recycling. So I think this is very much a great topic for the solid waste committee to noodle through and give recommendations to the select board about in the out years. But definitely, but if you
Okay.
feel, yeah, but I'm
no,
okay with.
I think that's fair. I think in the case of trash, we say, gee, we haven't had an increase in the time and we're $200,000 in the hole on this right now. So we're gonna do an increase this year, and we have this committee that is working on it, and they're going to taking a look at the entire process, recycling, solid waste, trash. What should we be doing going forward, and see what they have to say? And then we'll come back and decide whether we're gonna have another increase or
Mhm.
whatever.
Mhm.
I
Yep,
think
no,
that's fair.
Yep, no, and I think it should be a task for the committee just to definitely get back to the select board in time for the board to consider another increase or not next year.
Right, and I just don't want people to think, well, we're doing this now and then there'll be another 6 years before anything else happens.
No such luck.
Right, right. Okay,
So we're gonna set up a hearing for an increase of 15% in water and sewer rates and a $5 per month residential and 10% commercial increase in rates for your meeting next week.
right. Sounds good.
Okay. And we implemented the $5 per month, $15 a quarter in 2013.
Okay. So it's been 8 years since I've seen an increase.
And $5 ain't what it used to be.
Yeah,
Is that your grandmother talking, Mike?
No, that's me. I've been out looking to buy something today, and it's ridiculous what things cost.
I think it's a good plan. Yeah.
yep.
And again, are we going to take this additional, if we implement this, we're looking at estimating revenues increasing by $75,000 here. Are we going to put that into fund balance? Because that would lead to a reduction if we project these revenues, that would lead to a reduction in the
In tax. I don't think we should lower the tax rate because that defeats what we're trying to do here.
And the other positive of that is that's going to give you another $100,000 in fund balance that you'll be able to use to reduce the impact of future tax rate impacts,
Right,
right, from the debt service.
right.
So I would try to hold on to that until 2022 if at all possible, for tax rate setting then, because that's when you're gonna wanna try to lessen that impact, at least for a year.
Right.
Leave it in.
Okay, you have what you need, Mark?
I do. We will get the public notice out, public hearing notice, and hold a public hearing on next Wednesday,
The 24th.
the 24th, 3 p.m.
Okay,
All right.
anything else from anyone?
Rich, you had a question for tomorrow, before tomorrow's meeting for the
Yeah,
board?
I just wanted to make sure, Margaret and Mike, I got your responses via email, but the sort of direction I was going with the solid waste committee, that seems to be okay as far as you guys are concerned. So tomorrow we'll have our first organizational meeting and move along those lines. Based on your comments, I assume that still, you haven't changed your mind in the last couple hours.
No,
Nope, you just better get reelected.
yeah,
That's right. Otherwise, someone else is going to have to serve on the
or we'll
board.
put it on the new guy.
There you go. Well, but I do want to thank my fellow select board members for presenting the one guy who's up for reelection on the select board with having to defend these increases in water rates and trash rates and sewer rates. It's perfect timing, but
Well, they'll know
I'm
you can
joking.
take a punch.
I'm sorry. Yeah. No, I think they're obviously, it's been quite some time since we've increased these, and we do need to do it. So
Yeah.
unfortunate, but true.
All right, I have a motion to adjourn.
I will make the motion to adjourn, Mike.
I will second that motion. Rich,
All those in favor, Margaret, I.
Rich, I.
Mike, aye. Thanks, everybody.
All right,
Thank you.
thanks, everyone.
Bye.
See you later.
Bye.